Have you ever picked up a product, maybe, or used a service that just clicks?
Yeah.
It feels intuitive, maybe even delightful, like it was reading your mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or maybe the opposite, something so frustrating you just, I don't know, want to throw your phone across the room.
We've all definitely been there.
Exactly. Well, today we're doing a deep dive into something that really shapes those experiences.
Yeah.
User-centered design, UCD. It's this whole philosophy that puts you, the user, right at the very heart of how things get made.
Right. And for this deep dive, we've gathered, well, quite a stack of sources, actually. We're looking at academic journals, things like the Journal of Future Studies, Stanford's Social Innovation Review, Frontiers, IJR MPS,
Okay.
but also industry stuff from UX Matters, and even, interestingly, a Reddit thread. So a real mix.
A broad perspective, then.
It gives us this really multifaceted view of UCD. You know, the core ideas, the benefits, some are quite surprising, but also the challenges, the tough parts, especially with new tech and societal changes coming up.
Okay, so our mission today is basically to unpack what UCD really is, see where it's making a difference, and then tackle some of the, well, the big hurdles and the cutting-edge thinking it's changing its future. Sound good?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's unpack this. We've all felt good design and bad design. But what is user-centered design fundamentally? How would you define it at its core?
Well, at its heart, UCD is really about deeply understanding the people who will actually use the thing and their context.
Okay.
This isn't just a quick look. It means really digging into what users need, what they want, even their limitations, watching how they actually interact with products.
Observing them.
Yeah, observing, finding those pain points, analyzing why they do what they do, their motivations.
So it's really about building with the user in mind right from the get-go.
Precisely. And a key thing here is that UCD insists on involving users constantly, at every stage, from the very first ideas to the final testing.
Not just at the end.
No, not at all. It's genuinely about solving real problems people have, creating solutions that feel intuitive, that work smoothly, that remove barriers. And critically, it's also about balancing that with business needs.
Oh.
Designs have to be useful, sure, but also, viable, economically sound, aligned with what the company's trying to achieve.
So we've got a definition.
Yeah.
But what really makes it work? What are the pillars? You mentioned empathy earlier, and I'm curious how we move beyond just saying empathy to actually doing it effectively.
That's such a crucial question.
Yeah.
And it leads us straight to the core principles. First, yes, genuine empathy, stepping into the user's shoes, feeling their frustrations, understanding their goals, not just guessing.
Right.
Then there's continuous iteration. Design isn't linear. It's not a one-shot deal. You cycle back, you refine.
Keep tweaking it.
Exactly.
Oof.
Active user participation is key to usability tests, interviews, watching people use prototypes, and finally, accessible design, making sure it works for everyone, including people with disabilities. Inclusivity built in.
Okay, so if we connect that to the bigger picture, the immediate benefits seem clear, right? Happier users, products that are easier to use. But you suggested there's more to it, strategically.
Oh, definitely. The real strategic edge comes from how UCD unlocks innovation and cuts long-term costs, sometimes in ways you wouldn't expect.
How so?
Well, making products more intuitive, engaging, satisfying, that directly builds customer loyalty. That's a massive competitive advantage.
Can't argue with that.
And think about costs. By testing early and getting that user feedback constantly, you spot problems before they become huge, expensive fixes later in development or after launch.
Preventing the big disasters.
Exactly. Plus, just watching users in their real environment, that sparks ideas. It fuels continuous innovation, keeping a business relevant and ahead of the game.
So practically speaking, how does this UCD process actually unfold? What are the typical steps?
It generally follows a flow. First, there's research. That means interviews, surveys, looking at data, observing users.
Gathering information.
Right. Then analysis. You take all that data and synthesize it. Look for patterns, insights.
Make sense of it.
Then you design. Create wireframes, mock-ups, prototypes. Then, crucially, testing. Get it in front of real users, see what happens, get their feedback,
And then?
iterate. You refine the design based on what you learned in testing, and you might cycle through design, test, iterate multiple times.
Can you give an example?
Sure, think about something like the Amazon Kindle. It was clearly designed for readers, focusing on comfort, long battery life, easy reading for hours.
Yeah, the e-ink screen.
Exactly. Or Airbnb, they clearly thought deeply about the user journey, anticipating needs for searching, booking, communication, making it feel seamless.
Right, so it sounds fantastic on paper, logical, beneficial. But we all know implementing big ideas isn't always smooth sailing. What kind of roadblocks do teams actually hit when they try to embrace this user-first approach?
You hit the nail on the head. Sounds great. But yeah, implementation has its hurdles. One of the biggest ones you hear about, time and budget. Research takes time. Testing takes time and resources. And in fast-moving projects, those can feel like luxuries or things you can cut.
So it's often perceived as costly or slow.
It can be, yeah. And that perception is a major barrier.
But beyond just money and time, you mentioned cultural resistance earlier. Is that really a bigger issue sometimes, or do they feed each other?
They absolutely feed each other. Often, that budget problem is actually rooted in cultural resistance. Our sources point this out clearly.
How so?
Well, some organizations just prioritize internal opinions, the highest paid person's opinion, or chase market trends instead of listening to hard data from actual users.
Ah, the hip PO effect.
Exactly. And there's also that tricky balancing act, aligning what users truly need with the company's strategic goals. That can involve a lot of internal negotiation and pushback.
So are there any numbers on this? How common are these different challenges?
There's actually a fascinating study. It was specifically on robotics prototyping, but the findings really apply broadly to design. It found limited resources budget, and time was the top obstacle, reported in about 44% of the studies they looked
I
at.
mean, nearly half.
Yeah. Then user engagement problems, things like finding and recruiting the right diverse users for testing, that was around 33%.
Still significant.
And interdisciplinary barriers, basically, getting the tech teams and the user-focused people on the same page, that came up in about 22% of cases.
Let's circle back to empathy for a second. You said it's core, but our sources also warn it can be tricky, even promote exclusion if done badly. How does that happen? And what's
Flat.
this about the fuzziness being dangerous?
Right, it's a critical point. Empathy goes wrong if it's, say, dismissed as just a soft or feminine skill instead of a professional discipline, or if teams use shortcuts that oversimplify how complex people are.
Like just making assumptions based on personas.
Exactly. Or if the team's own internal dynamics biases, power structures aren't examined, they can actually override genuine empathy and just end up reproducing stereotypes.
Wow.
And the fuzziness part. If empathy isn't clearly defined and practiced rigorously, designers might just project their own feelings and biases onto users, thinking they understand when they really don't. That's where it gets dangerous, leading to designs that exclude or even harm certain groups.
So it's not just about being nice. It's a skill needing real awareness and discipline. This is quite a reframing. But what about the input from users? Can that also be a source of issues?
Absolutely. User input itself isn't always perfect. It can be biased or limited. Think about tacit knowledge.
Tacit knowledge.
Yeah, the stuff people know from experience but find hard to explain. Like a skilled craftsperson just knowing the right way to do something, they can't easily tell you why in an interview.
Right, it's ingrained.
Or consider workarounds. People get creative when software is clunky, right?
Yeah.
They figure out ways to make it work for them, even if it breaks the official rules.
Oh yeah, I've done that.
Exactly. But they might hesitate to mention these workarounds in formal feedback. Yet those are gold mines for design insights. If you only rely on traditional interviews or focus groups, you can miss all this deeper, sometimes hidden stuff.
That really highlights the gap between the UCD ideal and the messy reality. But okay, these challenges exist, but UCD is still being used everywhere, even in really specialized areas. Like international development, how does it apply there?
Yeah, in international development, UCD is really powerful for zooming in, focusing on the needs of individuals on the ground, understanding their specific context.
Makes sense.
But what's really interesting is seeing it combined with approaches that zoom out, like looking at the bigger economic picture or the political landscape, understanding the whole system, the power dynamics. That combination is incredibly effective.
So micro and macro.
Exactly. The big challenge there, though, is often the structure of development projects. Contracts might be rigid, funding cycles inflexible, which makes it hard to do that crucial research up front or iterate flexibly when you learn something new.
Ah, systemic hurdles again.
It really impacts the ability to truly apply UCD principles effectively, even when the intent is there.
And what about healthcare? Specifically e-health. How does HCD, human-centered design, play out there?
HCD is seen as vital in e-health, definitely, but it also faces limitations. Sometimes the focus is too narrow just on the immediate user interaction, missing the wider context, and bias is a risk, like in any field.
So what's the pushback or the evolution there?
Well, more critical perspectives are emerging, things like value-sensitive design, which explicitly brings ethics into the process.
Okay.
Also, citizen science, where the public aren't just subjects but actual co-researchers, helping collect data, even setting the research questions.
Interesting.
And even concepts like more than human design, which argues we need to consider the environment, the whole ecosystem, not just the human user, especially in health.
That's a broader view. Now, thinking about things we wear, wearables. UCD must be fundamental there.
Absolutely fundamental. Wearables need to be intuitive, comfortable, almost extensions of ourselves, and tailored to diverse people. Inclusive design is huge here.
How so?
Features like adjustable font sizes, haptic feedback, vibrations, modular parts so people can customize them. Thinking about different abilities, different ages, it has to feel personal, not like some clunky gadget strapped on.
Right. And when you add AI into wearables, especially for health,
Uh,
that must raise some tricky issues.
Huge issues. Algorithmic bias and fairness become front and center. If the AI is trained on data that isn't representative, it can perpetuate, even worsen, existing inequalities.
Can you give an example?
Well, there have been cases where health risk algorithms underestimated the needs of Black patients because the training data was flawed.
Yeah.
Or think about pulse oximeters, the things that measure blood oxygen historically. Some worked less accurately on darker skin tone.
Wow, that's serious.
It really is. It raises this critical question. How do we ensure the data we feed these AIs is diverse, inclusive, representative? Otherwise, we risk building tools that are actively unfair. There are methods being developed, like the persona multiplication method, trying to systematically generate diverse profiles to train AI more equitably.
A crucial challenge for the future.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, shifting gears slightly. Robotics. How does UCD fit into building robots?
It's vital there, too, especially for rapid prototyping. UCD helps make robotic systems more usable, accessible, easier for people to adopt.
Faster development, too.
Potentially, yes,
Yeah.
and lower costs, especially in sensitive areas like, say, pediatric prosthetics. A truly user-centered approach there can make an enormous difference in a child's life.
But the same challenges pop up.
Pretty much, yes. Limited resources, finding the right users to involve, getting engineers and designers collaborating smoothly. Standard stuff, but maybe amplified with complex hardware.
Now, what about virtual and augmented reality?
Yeah.
AR, VR. That seems like a whole new ballgame for design.
It really is. What's fascinating is seeing how UCD has to adapt. Teams working in AR/VR face unique hurdles.
Like what?
Well, basic misconceptions about the medium. People try to just slap 2D interface ideas onto a 3D space, and it often just doesn't work. Users get lost. They can't find things in a 360-degree view.
I can imagine.
The tools are also still evolving, kind of a patchwork, and there isn't always a shared language between designers, developers, artists.
So how do they cope? How do they apply UCD principles?
They get creative. They use a lot of physical prototyping, literally acting things out, using physical props to get a feel for the physicality of the experience.
Acting it out.
Yeah. They also create really well-defined boundary objects, things like shared design patterns or detailed storyboards to help everyone communicate across disciplines. Visual aids become super important to show how interaction should work in 3D space.
Beyond these specific technologies, though, you mentioned UCD ideas are popping up elsewhere.
Definitely. The principles are influencing really broad conversations. For example, in decolonizing design, which asks critical questions about whose perspectives dominate design and how to make it more equitable globally.
Interesting.
And in government, there's a growing movement around user-centered policy design, applying these ideas to create social policies, welfare programs, public services that actually work for the citizens they're meant to serve. It shows how relevant UCD is becoming far beyond just making gadgets or apps.
Okay, let's switch focus a bit to how this works inside development teams, especially with agile methods being so popular now. UCD focuses on the user, agile focuses on iterative delivery. How do those two actually work together? It seems like they should fit, but you said there aren't clear guidelines.
Right. They seem like a natural fit and they can work really well together to improve the whole process. But yeah, there's often a lack of explicit guidance on how to mesh them smoothly.
So how do UX designers cope in practice, say, within a Scrum team?
Well, talking to UX designers who work in Scrum teams, that's the agile framework with short sprints, reveals some common strategies. Most of them do a lot of work before the development sprints even begin.
Upfront work.
Yeah, sometimes weeks or even months of research, clarifying requirements, creating and iterating on prototypes before handing anything off to developers.
Why so much upfront?
They really emphasize being involved in the early project planning. They want to ensure User needs are baked into the product backlog, the list of features right from the start. This gives them more flexibility to adapt the design as the project evolves. And in terms of timing within the sprints, most UX designers try to stay ahead of the
How
developers.
far ahead?
Typically, they aim to be at least one sprint ahead with prototypes and maybe two sprints ahead with their research activities.
To feed the pipeline?
Exactly. It gives them breathing room. It's not always rigid. Sometimes they need to be even further ahead. Very few, only one designer in the study we saw reported consistently working within the same sprint as the developers. That buffer seems important.
That makes a lot of sense. So communication must be absolutely paramount then, between the UX folks and the developers.
Crucial. Constant communication is needed so developers understand the why behind the design, the user needs, and designers understand the technical limitations or possibilities.
Does being physically close help?
Being co-located definitely helps foster that informal communication. But as one designer put it, and I love this quote, you need to take space as a UX designer. If the communication is missing, be the one that communicates. You have to be proactive.
Take ownership of communication. But what if developers aren't receptive?
That happens. Not all developers are eager for deep collaboration. Some might prefer just being handed a finished spec. It points to different working styles and maybe mindsets.
A potential clash.
It can be. But the flip side is that Agile, when it works well, can really benefit UX. It allows for that closer, more frequent interaction with developers and decision makers. And requirements become more flexible, which is great for the iterative nature of UX design.
You mentioned prototypes earlier as helping bridge gaps. Can you elaborate on how they function as communication tools, especially that physical prototyping for AR/VR?
Right. High-fidelity prototypes, ones that look and feel close to the final product, can really minimize misunderstandings between the design vision and what actually gets built. But that physical prototyping for AR/VR is fascinating.
Tell me more.
Designers literally get up and move around, maybe using simple props like cardboard cutouts or stickers on walls to represent virtual elements. They act out the user's interaction in physical space. This helps developers who might be more code-focused grasp the feel, the physicality of navigating and interacting within a 3D environment. It's a very embodied way of communicating the design. And this idea connects to something called boundary objects in participatory design.
Boundary objects.
Yeah, these are artifacts that different groups can all understand and use, even if they have different backgrounds or expertise. Things like photos or decks of cards with concepts on them that become a shared language.
Like prompts for discussion.
Exactly, or even more dramatic methods like using forum theater techniques where people act out scenarios. These create what they call third spaces, neutral ground for negotiation and building shared understanding between, say, software engineers and the people who will actually use the software. They boost communication and really enhance the designer's empathy.
But prototypes aren't always perfect solutions, are they? You mentioned a potential downside.
Ah, yes. There's a surprising trap. Sometimes a team puts so much effort into building a complex, high-fidelity prototype, they develop an emotional bond with it.
Attached to their creation.
Sort of, yeah. And then, because of time pressure or budget cuts, that prototype, which was maybe never intended to be the final code, ends up getting shipped as the actual product.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, it can lead to real problems later with code that's hard to maintain, hard to reuse, because it wasn't built with production robustness in mind. It was just meant to be a demo.
Okay, fascinating. We talked a lot about the user, the team. What about the broader system? You mentioned socio-technical systems earlier. How does that fit into this UCD picture?
That's a really important lens. Socio-technical systems thinking isn't just about the user and the tool. It looks at the complex interplay between people, the social part, and technology, the technical part, within a whole work environment.
So moving beyond the individual.
Exactly. It shifts the focus. The primary unit isn't the single user, but often the team or the group and how they work together with the technology.
What are the key ideas there?
Some core principles include things like responsible autonomy, meaning groups have internal control and leadership over their work. And whole tasks, the idea that a small, ideally face-to-face group takes ownership of an entire process cycle, not just one tiny piece.
Why is it better?
It allows for more adaptability. It makes the work more meaningful because people see the whole picture. It encourages developing multiple skills, leading to greater job satisfaction. Ultimately, the goal is safer, more effective, even more enjoyable workplaces. Some even argue it promotes greater democracy in society by empowering workers. And what's really interesting now is how this thinking is being applied to massive online systems.
Like social media.
Exactly. Social networks, online marketplaces. Recent work treats these huge socio-technical systems almost like agents themselves with purposeful adaptive behavior. This perspective opens up ways to analyze and potentially even legally regulate things like recommender algorithms through that socio-technical lens. It's a powerful way to think about system-level effects.
Very interesting. Now, bring it back more directly to the user
Mhm.
experience. Accessibility. You mentioned it as a core UCD principle. How has that evolved?
Accessibility audits have really become a cornerstone of modern UCD practice, ensuring websites, apps, digital products meet established guidelines like WCAG,
WCAG.
the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. It's the global standard. Following these doesn't just help people with disabilities use the product, which is critically important.
Right.
It also generally improves the experience for everyone. Think clear layouts, good contrast, keyboard navigation. That helps lots of users. Plus, it often improves SEO, search engine rankings, and helps meet legal requirements.
So it's good business too.
Absolutely. It demonstrates a commitment to diversity, strengthens brand loyalty. And in Europe, there are new laws coming into force from 2025 that will make accessibility requirements even stricter for many digital products and services. It's becoming non-negotiable.
Okay, let's look to the future then. What's buzzing in the UI UX world right now? What are designers talking about?
Two big things dominate the conversation: AI and spatial computing.
AI, no surprise there. How are designers seeing it?
It's mixed. Some see the current wave as a bit of a gimmick phase. Others worry about jobs. Will AI design things and test things and eliminate our jobs?
The perennial fear.
Yeah. But others are more optimistic, seeing AI as a tool to simplify repetitive tasks, maybe enabling more personalized user experiences.
And spatial computing, that's AR/VR, essentially.
Right. Augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality. There's a lot of buzz around designing for the Z axis and physical space, thinking in 3D. The Apple Vision Pro launch definitely fueled a lot of excitement and discussion around spatial computing.
But amid all this new tech,
hmm
what's the underlying sentiment?
I think the consensus among experienced designers is still that true success, true market differentiation, comes from fundamentally solving user problems well, not just chasing the latest visual trend or tech gimmick.
Back to basics, in a way.
Exactly. And there's also a feeling that having clear standards, like accessibility standards, is ultimately good for users, even if it adds constraints to the design process. It levels the playing field in a positive way.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground. We've gone from the core ideas of user-centered design empathy, iteration, through its real-world applications in fields like healthcare, robotics, AR/VR, even international development.
Yeah, and we looked at the challenges too: resources, getting user input right, those tricky interdisciplinary dynamics.
We unpacked the complexities around empathy, how it needs careful handling, and explored how UCD integrates, sometimes awkwardly, with agile methods, highlighting the need for communication and collaboration.
And we touched on that broader view: socio-technical systems, thinking about people and tech working together in complex environments.
It really shows how UCD is this evolving, expanding field grappling with technology and human needs.
Which really brings up a crucial final thought, doesn't it? As technology like AI and spatial computing races ahead, how do we make sure those foundational UCD principles, real empathy, truly inclusive collaboration, don't get lost?
How do we keep them central, not just let them become afterthoughts tacked onto the shiny new tech?
Exactly. How do we ensure they remain paramount, not overshadowed by the hype or seen as just nice to haves when budgets get tight?
That's a really important question for everyone involved in creating the products and services we use every day. So thinking about everything we've discussed, what stands out most to you from this deep dive? How might you use these ideas to look differently at the technology around you, or maybe even think about how things could be designed better?